This is James's meal for today. I have
It's
some
really
cucumber
fancy.
with some baba ganoush and some pickled beets and potatoes with rissam and brown rice with some curried kale, beet greens, something else, some of the greens. Maybe, spinach. And then some carrot pulp falafels. And we're going to be talking about Blacklist, the complete 7th season.
No, we've gone through a substantial part of that season, right? Or did we finish?
No, we haven't finished it. We've only went through this half.
There we go.
So it's the incomplete 7th season.
There we go. I like doing preliminary reviewings and stuff like that. So, do you want to start with that?
Well, I really like James Spader.
I do too.
I enjoy seeing him in everything that I see him in.
I like hearing him too. He's got a way with words.
Yes.
Gotta say.
And honestly, there's not much more going for the show than him. But I love it because he's in it. So they, at least the makers of the show had the sense to hire him. And they don't need anything else because I'm going to keep watching as long as he's there. And I mean, what's her name? Is it Megan something? The
woman who looks like Linda McCartney.
She's
only
very cute.
Oh, that's not her.
No.
You're talking about. Yes, she is. I know who you're talking about, the brunette. Yeah, she is.
And she's not a good actress, but you know,
she's not great,
she's
but
not
she's not
bad. And
she's not the worst.
There's certainly worse in these sort of roles. And, so anyway, there's some actors, some characters that I kind of follow.
I kind of like this guy that looks
I
like
do too.
Maybe a grad student in Near Eastern Studies or something like that. So he's definitely not a looker, but
Megan Boone.
Megan Boone. Is that her character name or?
No, that's the actress's name.
Okay.
The character's name is Elizabeth Keene. I'm reading it off the back of the box.
There we go, Elizabeth Keene. Boone.
But,
is that like Daniel Boone is spelled B-O-O-N-E?
Yep, there it is.
Well, maybe she's related, you know? Like, I think, what was his name? Pat Boone was related to Daniel Boone, right?
Yep.
So.
Oh, and if you happen to, I got a bunch of these plates from the MCC thrift store back in the day when I was going to the thrift store. I'm not now because I'm worried about COVID.
We haven't been to the thrift store for, it seems like half a year, something like that. April, May, June, July, August, September. Pretty well half a year, maybe even a little bit more. I don't think we stopped going there. You know, when everyone else got semi-concerned in mid-March, I think we'd stopped pretty well close to the beginning of the year.
So, anyway, I don't know what I was going to say about that. Oh, the plate. It's easy to make a really fancy-looking meal with these sort of plates that are all divided like that. And plus, they're great for kids. Not this size. I have some kid-size plates that are in this style too, but because kids like the food divided.
Yes, they do.
You know,
I hated mixed up food.
I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah,
if the food was touching, that was
disgusting.
Going to the dog.
Yeah.
Because there was no way. And my mom she wouldn't feed me until it was gone, so I wouldn't eat. I would refuse to eat. And it could be days that I wouldn't eat because I would not learn.
I was much the same way.
Yeah.
So I know I went to camp and I couldn't stand the way they mixed meat in with things. And I survived on breakfast. I didn't eat.
Well,
I didn't eat the noon stuff. I just put it in the garbage. I was
Yeah.
I had to be surreptitious about it because I was afraid I'd get in trouble.
Yeah.
And I scraped the evening meal into the garbage too.
Mm-hmm.
If they hadn't mixed it around, I would have been able to eat the vegetable matter, right?
Yeah.
But they had these horrible hunks of meat. Incidentally, you did a great job with the kale here,
Oh, good.
mixing it with other things, so
Yeah.
it doesn't taste like kale.
Good.
Very good. Thanks.
In the show, Blacklist. In this season, you're getting to know another character a little more, and you're wondering, well, she seems like an awful, bad person, but you know, there aren't a lot of good people in this. There's the FBI, but they seem to be
Ineffectual.
not that smart, really. They're working for Raymond Reddington, really, and
Excuse me.
and they think that he's giving them valuable information, so they're able to make arrests and whatever. But really, I mean, he's giving them only information that he wants to give them. And yes, they're making arrests, but they're making the arrests that he wants them to make. So, I mean, so really, we've seen James Spader in roles like this before, where he's trying to show the public a little bit of the possibilities of what could be happening in politics and the world of law or law enforcement.
What was that,
whatever.
Boston Legal or
Yeah.
something like that?
And we'll review a little bit more of that a little later.
Well, that's good. I like that show.
Yeah, I've realized that all I have to do to keep us relatively safe is to disinfect the table each time we come out, and
because you never know who's been up here.
well, it could be cats. Like the
could be.
cats all summer, they were laying on this chair. They'd lay on the chairs that we sat on a lot of the time, but they'd lay on this one most of the time because it was off in the corner. And so I'd come around and they were like, "Oh no!" and they'd go running.
Been busted.
You know, yeah. But I decided, well, all I have to do is put a blanket on it, and I can keep this blanket in the porch. Or I could wash it every time. That would be a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
So I think I'm just going to remember which side was out and try to keep doing that. Just keep it in the porch. In my not so clean space.
It'll be clean in some time. I think this fall.
I'll just keep things in Rubbermaid tubs. And,
I see what you're saying. I thought you meant kind of
before it's a
disorganized.
transition area, so I don't have to bring dirty things into the house. So
polluted
we
would
can
be
get
the term.
Yes, so we can take off our clothes in the porch, and then we're sure that the dogs aren't getting exposed to COVID.
Yeah, we don't know exactly what's happening.
Once they're exposed, we're exposed too. Like,
even
if
all
we
over
get
everywhere,
even if we get cleaned off and whatever, I mean, they're gonna drag it everywhere. So, anyway, what was I gonna say? Keep getting distracted. Blacklist. So, in this season, you're kind of wondering, well, you know, Raymond Reddington, he really is, he has the FBI in the palm of his hand. And you don't know who he is. You don't know who he really is, because you know that, well, at least as far as we know, the real Raymond Reddington was killed. So doesn't exist anymore. And anyway, so, and he's not a good person. I mean, he does kill people.
Oh, he's a killer.
All the time. So, I mean, it's an interesting way to make a really bad person who kills people and makes a lot of money and works well outside the law, look like a cute and cuddly hitman or something like that, right? And so I guess the makers of the show have done a good job doing that. But there's a lot of parts where you're like, this is not even realistic, at all. And so luckily they have James Spader playing Raymond Reddington, and that you just kind of overlook all those things.
I mean, one of the things is he seems a very learned individual.
Yeah.
And most heavies like him are the kind of people who go around saying sincerely, not ironically, I'd back you up 1,000,000%. I guess you can get 1,000,000%. But
Anyway.
generally, you can't win with stuff like that. You can't do more than 100%. In other words, 1,000,000% is way more than totally.
Yes, I suppose. I guess economically speaking, though. Anyway.
Oh, and other things, you can get 1,000,000%, like 1,000,000% increase
in profits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, do you have anything else to talk about?
No.
I thought you were going to review some books, but I guess that'll be tomorrow.
I'm not quite.
Okay.
I've got another Bernard Malamud. I went through more short stories. It turns out there's overlap with the short story that I did the other day.
Yeah.
And so now I'm going through the one novel that you got of his. And
sure is
I'm about a third of the way through that, and I started this morning, so I'm slamming through it.
I've got to get up there and pick these apples. I've picked a few so far.
They're going to bonking us on the head.
But yeah, we have a nice week. I'll get around to it. There's some up there that are already quite red, and I don't like them once they get to be red. They're too sweet for me, and I don't like the texture at that point. I like them to be really firm and sour. So,
you like Granny Smith's?
Yes.
That might be your favorite kind of apple.
Yes. But these are not. These are sweet apple. But if I pick them when they're underripe, then they're good. Well, for me. Tart and hard. So, like that. But, yeah, there's a lot that are already too red. So, James will like them. I don't like as much. Anyway.
We were checking maybe for the last time. At least in a while. Very long.
How did you like the Rassam? Was it too hot for you?
This?
Yeah.
I mixed it over here. It's awesome.
Okay.
So I put it on the carrot things.
All right.
Yeah. So I promised the dogs if they were good.
Well, I'll give them some
potatoes.
other potatoes.
Oh, there we go.
Other
That's
potatoes.
Anyway, and I'll enjoy it. There's some left on the potatoes, so it's going very well with the carrot.
Okay.
With the carrot nuggets. But yeah, we were out at the university checking the lab out. I was checking a few things out. I think somewhere along the line I said George Floyd was convicted for holding a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach.
Well, we had found that on the internet, but it turns out that's
apparently
now we're hearing that it's not true. That
they're not sure if she's pregnant or something.
Oh,
like
okay.
That.
So she may not have been pregnant. He held a gun to some woman's abdomen. I
think is what he was convicted for. Again, that might not be true. It might be made up, but one has to be careful. And it turns out we weren't careful enough. So apologies. Yeah. Anyone ran across that and repeated it.
It doesn't matter.
Well, it kind of does.
Well, it doesn't, because people should be looking these things up on their own. And then they would come across the same stuff.
Well, we came to this
the
late
fact of the
because
matter is, I don't know these people, and I don't know the truth about them, and I can't. I mean, even when you see the CCTV footage or the body cam footage or whatever, you have to be saying to yourself, well, is this really, is this authentic or has it been altered? And things can very easily be altered nowadays.
Yeah,
so,
true.
I mean, they had a episode about that on Blacklist at the beginning here, about somebody was killed because it looked like they were a terrorist or whatever, but they were not. It was altered footage. So that's all I really have to say. I've said it before. You can't trust what you see.
Yeah. And
seeing is not believing anymore, because if anybody has the computer savvy, or even not much savvy, but money enough to have the programming to do it or whatever, then they can do it. The technology's out there now.
Yeah. So the Russians are going to be doing some amazing things, I'm afraid.
Yeah. So it becomes more, you have to look at, well, what is likely, right? Is this believable? And sadly, I mean, the people that are spinning the narratives tend to be yellows, and they are not believable. They are not trustworthy.
Nope.
So, and it's interesting, we saw some things about defund the police, and then there was defund the media, or whatever. And I mean, what can you do about that, right? We're hearing all this talk about left-wing media, and it's like, what's that? Where? There's a few left-wing media sources that I try to share links to every now and then that are reliable. But a lot of the media that really makes a lot of money doesn't tend to be left-wing media. It's owned by right-wingers, so it's not left-wing media.
Yeah, so
CNN and it's presented as such. It is not.
CNN is presented as being left-wing by those kind of yokels, and CNN back in the day was operated and owned by, Ted Turner. And I always thought of its coverage as being at least vaguely right-wing, but and then I don't have to say anything about Fox Network.
But I mean, there's a lot of really, say, foreign media sources that are presented as being left-wing alternative media sources, but they are extremely conservative, way more conservative than anything that you can find in the United States almost, right? So
are you thinking of BBC?
I'm not going to say what I'm thinking about, but it's interesting, especially when there's religions involved with conveying alternative media information. Then they're going to be more conservative on average. The religious, anyway. I think I've said enough that people should be able to figure out what I'm talking about. And in that case, why would I trust them over even Fox? I mean, really, why? But people do. So
I don't trust BBC. This might be something different from what you're talking about.
It is something different from what I'm talking about. But anyway, and we were hearing Matt Galloway talking about, he was interviewing the police here in Canada.
On CBC.
Some police, I don't know who they were. But he was asking about systemic racism in Canada and whether the police and whoever was being interviewed, I didn't catch the fellow's
It was
name.
actually O'Toole, the new leader of the
Conservative
Party.
Oh, I thought it was a police guy. But, they were just asking, he was asking about systemic racism within the police. Was it the RCMP? I'm not sure. Anyway. And so, Yeah, I got it mixed up a
I
little
think
bit.
he was actually talking about in Canada. But
I think it was
anyway.
within the police.
Yeah.
So, and we've talked about it before, that certainly the police have gotten involved with politics. When you think about the Mulrooney scandal, I mean,
Oh, that was awful.
they were certainly involved with that.
Well, a certain somebody was, at the very
Someone
least.
was, yeah.
Got hold of.
And so then Canada ended up having to pay Mulrooney a whole bunch of money.
I think it was $1 million.
Mulrooney was
maybe
guilty.
It looks like.
Yeah, because
I mean, Karl-Heinz Schreiber, was supposed to have, bribed him, was convicted in a German court.
Yeah, so
I don't think that was a kangaroo court.
I mean, somebody getting convicted outside of Canada for bribing Mulrooney. And Mulrooney ends up, I mean, he's basically, what he did was, well, you can look into it. It's interesting. So,
Too interesting.
Yeah.
But I gather he took the bribe. And then he got paid $1 million for committing that crime.
Yeah.
I think it was over, a little over.
Yeah, by the taxpayers. Taxpayers had to pay.
Brian, pay that back with interest, you bozo, in case you're watching.
Anyway, so yeah, the police definitely get involved with politics, and they, I think, pretty much all would be right-wing. So
it would be rare to find someone who's left-wing.
I don't know. I can see why there's this thing happening with the defund the police and all this, and in the United States, and I don't know. Canadians are going along with it because they think Americans are cool. I'm not sure, but I mean, we don't have the same issues. It's funny that here in Canada, we're not us, but Canadians are going with the Black Lives Matter thing, and it's like, well, anybody who is African American in Canada, there's some that are in Halifax where they went to get away from, so they were welcomed into Canada, and well, not into Halifax, but in Nova Scotia. There probably a lot of them ended up in Halifax rather than in the.
You get some along
area.
the west, southern, southwest, kind of like.
Yeah.
Kind of like in a rural setting. I think it's just north of Halifax.
And I suppose they would have been the first African American refugees in Canada.
Refugees. There might have been some who were successors of some sort of slavery. Canada would have had some sort of slavery with the Brits and stuff like that.
I don't
know how
think
it's
so. I looked into it when I was a teenager, and there was very few instances, and it
There'd be
tended to be in Montreal or something like that. It was like it was not much, and it wasn't even. I don't even know if it could qualify as slavery, because it was. I think the people were being paid, and so anyway, so servant.
Fascinating you did that. I haven't heard about that.
Well, look into it.
Well, exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an important issue.
The resources I would have had as a teenager to look into this wouldn't have been as, well, one would think, as good and easy to find, as reliable, and everything else is what I could find today, and I haven't looked into it today. So.
Yeah. So, United States has an issue with Indigenous people.
But really, that's what it should be here. If
black.
people want to protest against some people being treated unfairly or whatever, it should be natives that are.
That's the ultimate issue in Canada.
Yes, because
if people have come here from elsewhere, they've come here for a reason.
Yeah.
And if they're economic refugees, this is politically incorrect, but factually correct. They're generally refugees of their own political or economic incompetence. I'm not talking about individuals, but I'm not talking about genes or stuff like that. People have a belief system, and they're in a particular belief system that just doesn't work well economically. There's corruption involved. There's nepotism involved. There's heavy conservatism involved. Those economic systems aren't going to perform well, and people will be running away from those kind of systems. Russia is a classic example, but there are others. I'm not going to mention any. You can do that work for yourself, and some of the places I mentioned might be politically incorrect. Might be dangerous to my health and economic well-being.
I was so careful about putting that baba ganoush on there. I thought you were just going to eat it like this. And it was,
yeah, so close. Anyway, it tastes good. That's good. Anyway, that's basically all I can.
And besides, now is not the time to be doing this Black Lives Matter thing, whether it's here or in the United States.
Well, I think what they're doing, they should be.
All you're doing is campaigning for Trump.
Yeah.
Every time you're out there.
It's the kind of stuff like the riots, the burning down buildings, stuff like that, getting physically involved with people. I mean, it's COVID-19 time. Of course, we get the press saying there's been no spread of COVID-19.
They can't possibly know that.
It's hard.
People are asymptomatic,
yeah.
And they're not going to get tested for the most part when they're asymptomatic. So, and anyway. But now what do you do with the kids back in school? I mean, a lot of parents won't get their kids tested because they don't want them at home. They want them at being taken care of by the school system rather than being at home. So,
but I really generally don't believe in the democracy and the efficacy of demonstrations. I believe in the efficacy of certain type of campaigns, like the campaigns that Greenpeace did to make, at least for a while, I wish it were in perpetuity.
Fur unpopular?
To make fur unpopular. But demonstrations, especially the ones that I've seen in democracies, tend to be divisive. They tend to devolve into violence, and they tend to work against what the demonstrators aiming for. So this is what happened in France in 1968. You get left-wing commentators say, "We almost overthrew de Gaulle." What are you talking about? He held a kind of like a referendum vote, and he increased his support after 1968. It was out of hand, and people were sick of it. They might have overthrown de Gaulle in the spring of '68, and something later on that year would have come and overthrown that. 1968, the United States, demonstrations, all over the place, black riots and stuff like that, and